Hey everybody, So Wookie here. In this video, we're going to go over the recent Dev Corner interview hosted by Groza and Severny. In this interview, they speak to Dave Cudd, Creative Director of Pubg Corporation, and he explains some of the major feedback that they have received and why they made certain design choices. Then, at the end of the video, he teases something new coming in Update 8.3. Hope you enjoyed the video and find the information useful. Leave a comment below of how you feel about the new Sanhok map, and like and subscribe. Really helps out the channel a lot. Let's jump right in. So, in his own words, the biggest change to the map was the terrain rework. They spoke to fans and esport players and found that crossing the river and the big mountain was a pain to navigate. And from my personal experience as well, the river wasn't too bad, but sometimes the ring would end on the mountain and you couldn't get to the enemy player, and it was basically impossible to kill them. They couldn't get you couldn't get them because they were up the mountain, you were down the mountain. And basically it came down to who had the most meds at the end. You had to just out heal each other. So when they wanted to redesign the map, they wanted to mitigate that. And now, as you'd know, that there's on Big Mountain, there's much more avenues and you can always get everywhere near enough, which is a good positive change. And they also reduced the depth of the river, so most of the time it's wading through, and they're also much narrower to reduce the deaths that take place there. The second thing he talks about is the rework to boot camp and the removal of the Red Lobster building. The main reason they did this was to provide new experiences in PUBG, and this was the most played hot drop on the map, so they wanted to make it fresh, and it also allowed it to be expanded, including the underground areas. From my personal experience, I never tended to drop boot camp too much, but you did fight there a lot because you had to travel through. I did quite like the Red Lobster building. It was fun for the occasional time that I dropped there, but I do much prefer the newer buildings, and I've been in the underground area and explored that, and it is really cool. He does, however, tease at the end that there's nothing to say that the map won't change again in the future, as PUBG is ever evolving, so we may well see the return to the Lobster building in the future. The third thing he discusses is the new ruins. In old ruins around the main building, it was very open, so even if you won the fight, it was easy for teams that landed a short distance away to come in the fight late and, potentially third party you, which would cause a lot of frustration because, the achievement of winning the fight wasn't really very good when you basically no resource and someone just comes in and finishes off. In the new ruins buildings, they're much bigger and they're surrounded by a perimeter wall, and then right up to the walls there's more trees, so it's much easier to enter and leave ruins with less risk. But it also means if you win that fight, you're not just immediately third party by someone who landed at a village nearby. And from my experience, the new ruins is much better, as it's less down to luck of when you land if you survive, and it's a lot easier to fight when it's over. And I think it's because it's much larger. So in the old ruins, it was just a couple of 3 tiers, and then if you couldn't find a gun quick enough, you were dead. Whereas now there's like 4 big towers. You can see where other people land. You can land in your tower. I've never struggled to get a gun, and then you have your good gunfight, and then you move out for the rest of the game, which is a pretty good change, and I like it a lot. And plus the aesthetic is just way better as well, and more up to date on there. The fourth thing they talk about is the Black Cat nightclub inclusion. And the reason they decided to go with this is because the docks wasn't being used very much, so they needed to create something different and interesting to tempt players to go over to that portion of the map, which is a good idea. It gets players exploring and spreads everybody out. However, from my experience, although the nightclub is cool, and I've been there a few times, now that I've been there, I don't think I'm going to go there very often, and I think it would be much better if they programmed the final ring much better so that it would go down there sometimes. Because can you imagine a final ring that was just like ended in the nightclub? Now that would be awesome. But as it stands at the minute, I've not had a ring go that way down to the southeastern portion of the map. So the only time I've been there is when I've gone there purposely just to have a look around. So hopefully, they can improve ring diversity in the future, which would be good. The next thing they talk about is the loot truck. And it was designed as sort of a mobile care package to try and spread players out more, so that not everyone would land at the same hot drop as much. So the trucks, I think I want to say 4 of them driving around at any one time, and they go around all over the map, or it might be 6. And I think there's a maximum of 8 in the game, so like once so many have been blown up, they don't spawn anymore. which is pretty good. I quite like them as a feature. They have had feedback about the balance of the loot trucks, as much more players are equipped with ghillie suits now and level 3 gear towards the end of the game. Now, from my personal experience, if you're in the top 10 and you're on a non-ranked game because the loot trucks aren't in ranked, at least 2, sometimes 3 of the top 10 players will have ghillie suits. And probably more of them will have level 3 gear, because there's not always a ghillie suit, but there is 3 vests, 3 helmets, etc. So it means that you have to be a lot more cautious with your final rings on Sanhok now, because you're not just going to down someone really quick because they've only managed to get a 1 vest or a 2 vest. You've got to expect the 3 gear, so you've just got to be a bit more tactical. I don't personally think it's overpowered. I mean, they could possibly tone down the ghillie suits a bit because, I mean, they blend in so well on Sanhok, but I suppose that's the advantage of going after the truck in the first place. Because, like I said, to get that, you have to, cause havoc and to blow it up. So it's a risk reward thing. I think they made the right choice in not putting crate weapons in there, and I think a good trade-off was using the the named M4 and stuff like that. I don't really bother picking them up though, because I mean, usually to destroy the loot truck, you would already have a weapon to destroy it. More often than not, is kitted out. So I'm not sure what they do with that. Maybe they could do it. They could change those 4 weapons so that perhaps I think it's Mads QBU has a full auto mode, maybe like the Mark 14, so that you'd want to take her QBU to have that extra ability, or perhaps the M4 maybe it has a burst mode similar to the 16 or something, and they could just change it up like that. They could do something for each of the 4 weapons, because I think there's the M4, there's the K9, there's the QBU, and my mind's gone blank. And what other? Oh, the AK. Yeah, the AK. So they could do something. Maybe the AK, Lunch Meats AK, has the ability to have a vertical foregrip like the barrel, which would make it very unique. So I think that would be a better trade-off than just, yes, it's the weapon with a skin on, because you already have weapons to do that. But if you could have that QBU and put it in full auto like the Mark 14, you'd definitely want that if you already had a QBU anyway. And I think that'd be something they could look at in the future. But again, they've took note of the feedback and they'll obviously implement that as they see fit. The next thing they talk about is the decoy grenade, and they decided to add it as another utility type designed to help you get out of sticky situations by distracting the enemy. Now, myself, it's been semi-useful in my gameplay. Each time that I've had one, I have been able to distract some players, but you don't see them that often to get that much game time with them. Like, you don't even get one every game, guaranteed. But I think the best tactic with those, if you have one, is save them for the last couple of rings, throw them completely away from you, so that everybody's looking to where the gunshots are, trying to work it out, and then you can sneak up behind people. I've used this in a couple of final rings. I've thrown it behind my enemies, so they all turn around, and then you just run up behind them. Did have an MG3 on that occasion as well, which is pretty good. And this go over the fact that they're currently being tested internally on Karakin at the minute, and it's looking good. But they also say that they will look into adding them to the larger maps in the future if it plays well and if the community respond well to it. And then the final thing that they talk about is a hint about a new upcoming feature. He says, in 8.3, a new piece of equipment that will allow the player to combat the environment in a different way, which can also be considered a gamble to be used in the later stages of a map. Now, this is more than likely the Blue Zone jammer that was leaked a while ago, and it will more than likely allow you to survive in the blue for a certain period of time. Now, I'm not sure how this will work exactly, because if it's literally just a backpack that you have, say that it has the equivalent bag space of maybe a level 1 backpack, for example, and then you can activate this Blue Zone jammer, in the final couple of the rings, you're just going to be sat in the blue. Now, I don't know whether that's going to be the most useful thing or not. Because if you're just sat in the blue and the players are in the middle of the ring, yeah, you're going to get a couple of lucky shots on them, but as soon as they realise where the gunshots come from, especially in something like squad, you're still going to get greased. You know what I mean? And say, for example, you activate the blue zone jammer, and it gives you maybe 60 seconds where you can sit in the blue. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work. I think it could be open to abuse, but again, they've not gone into the fine details of how it's going to work yet. And plus, even if it is abused a little bit at the beginning. They'll just tweak it and, you know, improve it to make it more balanced. But definitely looking forward to seeing that in the 8.3 patch notes. Like I say, if you want to keep up to date with that, I'll be doing a video on that one. So subscribe to the channel and like the video, and then you'll get notifications about that. And like I said, leave a comment below. What's your favourite part of the new Sanhok map, and what have you been enjoying the most? Hope you enjoyed this video. Wookie out.